The Peruvian government has extended the state of emergency in several regions of the country for another 30 days, as social organizations continue protesting against Dina Boluarte's administration. In Turkey and Syria, the death toll climbed to 36,000 1 week after the 7.8 magnitude earthquake that hit the two countries. And in the United States, authorities in Ohio issued an evacuation after a freight train derailed last Friday, sparking an unprecedented environmental disaster. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. The Peruvian government has extended the state of emergency in several regions of the country for another 30 days. The announcement coincided with the offer of a special bonus to police officers who repressed demonstrations. As from February 14th, the state of emergency in the country will be extended in several regions such as Lima, Callao, and the southern Apurimac-Cusco-Arequipa road corridor, together with the interoceanic road corridor. The announcement made by the National Police confirms that the force maintains control of the area, together with the armed forces, and will report to the Ministry of the Interior. In this context, the government announced on Monday that members of the Peruvian National Police in Lima and Callao will receive a bonus equivalent to 4 times their salary for the labor during the past weeks. To date, the repression by these security forces has left at least 48 fatalities in the midst of the social protests. We move on to other topics. The second cycle of the peace talks between the government of Colombia and the National Liberation Army started on Monday in Mexico. The talks will address issues such as the bilateral ceasefire and the incorporation of civil society in the construction of total peace. Both sides will also analyze the results of the first report to the humanitarian caravan, which will allow for the effective implementation of humanitarian relief for communities affected by the armed conflict. The new formal cycle of negotiations was reactivated only 3 months after Colombia's President Gustavo Petro took office in August, and under his policy of total peace, the delegations held a first round of dialogues between November and December in Caracas. In a statement, Colombia's High Commissioner for Peace thanked the hospitality of Mexico, who serves as guarantor country together with Venezuela, Chile, Norway, and more recently Brazil, adding that Sweden, Germany, Switzerland, and Spain will assist the peace talks table as accompanying countries in this second cycle. And the head of the ELN delegation to the peace talks with the Colombian government, Pablo Beltran, indicated that they seek to promote the changes that the country needs and to put an end to the internal armed conflict.
Peace talks table is an instrument of the mandate for change, whose agenda seeks to agree on transformations and to put an end to the armed conflict. It advances by confronting the difficulties inherited from the old regime, but with the determination to achieve a comprehensive and lasting peace that resolves the causes that generate the daily political and armed social conflict. It is understood that it will not produce a revolution by contract, nor will it decree an automatic demobilization of the rebellions.
Meanwhile, the head of the Colombian government delegation to the peace talks, Audi Patino, stressed that the ceasefire is a central issue in the talks between the parties.
It is up to us, as a table, as a delegation, to reinterpret the ceasefire and see it not only as a reduction of armed confrontations, but fundamentally as a reduction of hostilities towards the civilian population and of illegal activities generating damage and violence. And not also in the territories, but also in the consequences of these damages of violence on other Colombian territories and even other countries.
Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso did not appear before the national parliament on Monday to account for his alleged connection to a corruption scheme in public companies involving his brother-in-law, Danilo Carrera. The president had been summoned on Monday by the specialized commission which investigates the so-called Encuentro case regarding the alleged corruption scheme. The president of the commission, Viviana Veloz, indicated that the head of the state sent a letter in which he apologized for not attending due to agenda issues. Veloz stated that the president's appearance was important for the population, for which she claimed that Lasso's action only seeks to guarantee impunity and protect Danilo's career, thus obstructing the work of the commission.
The president has a countdown, 10 days. 10 days to tell the Ecuadorians the truth. 10 days before the investigation of this commission concludes. Mr. President of the Republic, Guillermo Lasso, your countdown has started. This commission will ensure that the Constitution and the law are respected.
In Honduras, members of the National Congress reached an agreement to elect the 15 magistrates of the Supreme Court of Justice. The plenary will meet this coming Wednesday to elect the members of the judiciary. This was achieved after an extensive 3-hour meeting at the congressional facilities. The heads of the branches or the benches of the different political parties that make up the legislature celebrated the agreement, guaranteeing that the selection of the new Supreme Court will not be inclined in favor of any party and will seek to guarantee the stability of the Honduran state. In Argentina, both private and public sector unions are making progress in meetings with business persons and the national, provincial, and municipal governments. The aim is to determine the salary increases that each sector will receive so that incomes do not lose out to inflation. From Buenos Aires, Argentina, Carolina Silvestre will explain the details of the case of public servants.
According to union leaders, keeping wages above inflation is a central struggle of Argentine workers.
The truth is that we have accumulated a very high loss of purchasing power after the 4 years of the Macri government, where the level of deterioration of wages was systematic, and with the government of the front of all we have recovered. But actually it is not enough because of what you have just mentioned. Inflation rates, the level of accumulation and concentration of those who market and produce the food chain, the basic elements for any family and for any household.
Leader Manolo Sueiro highlights the Fernandez government's fair prices program, but warns that more needs to be done to help the population.
It seems to us that there are many proactive policies that could be implemented, not only in terms of control, but also in terms of regulation and sanctions. In other words, there are levers in the state to apply them, and it seems to me that they are trying to find a balance. The truth is that the vast majority of workers, both public and private, are in need of a pay rise, and there is a demand that is transversal, that is, a fixed amount for all workers, regardless of whether they are state or private workers, but which somehow increases or includes an urgent improvement in purchasing power.
The trade union leaders' view is that the outcome of the distribution process should be for the benefit of the workers.
Every time inflation goes up, we workers lose with inflation. But to make a figure in relation to our best salary, which was in 2015, today in relation to 2015, we are 27.5% below. So that is what we also have to think about, not only to fight inflation, but also to be able to recover purchasing power. That is why we are asking for a fixed amount, because we have many colleagues who are below the poverty line.
The civil servants meet monthly with the national government to discuss these and other demands, including job security.
is not the recently recruited, but workers with 10, 20 years seniority who are in temporary employment. So this is also our demand. We understand that workers with so many years seniority are in a state of vulnerability if they are not transferred to permanent employment. Stability is a constitutional right and we must enforce it.
Identical claims of the unions representing the different sectors of Argentine society.
Carolina Silvestre, TeleSUR, Buenos Aires.
Let's take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Search and rescue efforts continue in Turkey and Syria after the earthquakes registered in both countries, which have left more than 36,000 dead so far. According to the Turkey Emergency Coordination Center, the number of victims of the earthquake has reached a total of 31,643. Ankara authorities also pointed out that a woman was rescued in the province of Hatay after remaining 175 hours under the rubble. The Syrian executive confirmed that the number of dead in the country as a result of the earthquake stands at 4,614, a figure that includes the dead in the areas controlled by the foreign occupation forces and the terrorist groups in Syria. The head of the UN aid in Syria, Martin Griffiths, indicated that the rescue phase is coming to an end, and the urgency now is to provide shelter, food, education, and psychosocial care to those affected. Four people were rescued alive on Tuesday in Turkey after 200 hours under the rubble without ingesting food or fluids. These survivors renewed the hopes and strength of family members and rescuers at a time when authorities said the total death toll by the end of the rescue works could reach 50,000. In this context, the two brothers aged 17 and 20 found in Kahramanmaraş, together with another aged 18 rescued in Adıyaman and a fourth survivor in Hatay, have surpassed all expectations. According to the rescue teams, they have some serious injuries, but their condition is not critical.
The city of Adıyaman was one of the most affected ones. We have a large number of damaged buildings, and many of them are no longer in living conditions, and we have to demolish them. Now we are providing food to all people that need it, and we are also working to provide housing for them.
Argentina's foreign ministry announced that the country will send humanitarian aid to Syria. The Argentine ambassador to Syria, Sebastián Zavala, confirmed that preparations are underway to carry out the humanitarian mission that will travel to the regions most affected by the earthquake. The operation will be carried out jointly with the Argentine Agency for International Cooperation and Humanitarian Assistance, according to its coordinator, Sabina Frederick. The South American nation has already deployed its humanitarian missions in Turkey. In Syria, the Director General of Civil Aviation informed on Monday that at least 80 planes have arrived in the country with humanitarian aid after the earthquake of February the 6th. A total of 82 planes arrived at 3 Syrian airports. The planes are from various countries, including 6 from Iran, 11 from Iraq, and 3 from Russia. In addition, Saudi Arabia requested permission for its planes carrying humanitarian aid to land in the country. For the time being, an air corridor for Saudi aircraft is being organized. The massive earthquakes struck several provinces in southeastern Turkey and northwestern Syria last Monday. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees reports that an estimated 5.3 million people have been displaced in Syria after last week's earthquake. Syria was hit by a 5.4 earthquake on February the 6th, which caused the collapse of multiple buildings in the north part of the country. The international organization said there were already around 6.8 million people displaced by the conflict in the Arab nation before the earthquake. The Secretary of the United Nations Organization for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, commented that Syria has not received even half of the support it should have. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Authorities in the U.S. state of Ohio have issued an evacuation order for residents of the town of East Palestine near the Pennsylvania border after a freight train derailed and caught fire on Friday night. 5 of the 50 or so derailed tank cars were carrying vinyl chloride, a highly toxic and hazardous chemical used mainly in the United States for the manufacture of plastics, such as cable sheeting or packaging materials. In the wake of such an environmental disaster, the authorities decided to release on Monday in a controlled manner the dangerous material in these wagons from a wrecked train that was at risk of exploding and causing greater harm in the surroundings. Meanwhile, in the states of South Carolina and Texas, at least one person died after 2 trains derailed. In the state of Texas, 16 rail cars derailed in Montgomery County, while authorities warned about a possible hazardous material emergency. At the same time, in South Carolina, authorities mobilized to attend a similar event in the town of Inouye. Eritrea's President Isaias Afwerki has accused the U.S. of supporting rebels during the recently concluded civil war in northern Ethiopia. President Afwerki stated during an interview with local media that the peace deal signed between Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the TPLF, was rushed by the U.S. to prevent the rebels from losing in the battlefield. Last week, the reclusive leader denied reports that Eritrean troops committed war crimes in neighboring Ethiopia, where they had been deployed to fight alongside federal troops and pro-government militias. Eritrea's army supported Ethiopian forces during the war against the TPLF and has been accused by the United States and rights groups of some of the conflict's worst atrocities. Now we move on to other topics. On Tuesday in New Zealand, Cyclone Gabriel swept away roads, flooded homes, and left 225,000 people without power across the country as a national state of emergency was declared. Strong winds and torrential rain lashed the country's populous North Island in what Prime Minister Chris Hipkins called the most significant weather phenomenon New Zealand has seen this century. Local media reported that some people were forced to swim from their homes to safety. An estimated 2,500 people have been forced to flee their homes, but the number is likely to rise. Climate scientist Dairi Stone said Cyclone Gabriel had been feeding off unusually warm seas, driven by a combination of climate change and La Niña weather patterns.
Gabriel is the most significant weather event New Zealand has seen this century. The severity and the breadth of the damage that we are seeing has not been experienced in a generation. This morning we declared a national emergency for only the third time in our history. We are still building a picture of the effects of the cyclone as it continues to unfold, but what we do know is the impact is significant and it is widespread.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.